Hey everyone, Jason Sherman here. In today's episode of Zero to CEO, I speak to a relentless legal trailblazer, Lem Garcia. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
No problem, man. And today we're going to talk about how to build success, because you started with a few $1,000s and you were on Craigslist and you turned it into one of Southern California's top personal injury law firms. That's like a success story in my book, right? And a lot of people who listen to the show or they watch it, they don't know how to really get started and kind of build something. So how did you get started? What was the moment that you realized you had a real business here?
Well, I think the first way to get started is there's a lot of fear that people have to overcome. And I think the best way to overcome that fear is really just by taking action, having a game plan and then taking action. As far as when I knew that things were going well, it's probably when the first case resolved. I think the attorney's fee was like $10,000, probably within the first 6 months of opening. And I just thought, like, you know what, if I get enough of these kind of cases, things are going to be all right. So
So
just
it was kind
stay
of a matter of
positive.
like, earning some income from a case and then kind of putting it back in and like trying to continue to double and triple and keep getting cases like that were you advertising to get more cases at that time, or like were you using the money to like market your business, or how were you getting more business?
Yeah, so I started out with just using everything that was free. So
Okay.
Facebook, Instagram, word of mouth. And then I started building from there, just kind of really cheap advertising, like local church bulletins,
Okay.
city bulletins, just
So
started out
so
small.
let's talk about that for a second. So a lot of people always think that running a Facebook ad or posting on Craigslist ads or whatnot is the way to go. But my partner is actually out today with some flyers handing out for my business to people in person, right? So let's talk about how you were doing that in person and how you were getting customers in person, whether doing bulletin boards or other ideas.
Well, yeah, just in person, you would just want to make sure you have a bunch of business cards, and that whenever you would meet somebody new, try to meet people new, just
Right.
let them know that what you did, that you were in business, and you never know when one person that you meet can just really just be a spark to create like, a wildfire, really, just to get more clients that way. And that's really what happened. You just put a lot of feelers out there, and you never know when one of those is just going to bloom into something that's bigger than you even ever thought would be possible.
Yeah, because like each person has their own network, right? And you never know if that person is going to start pushing your service onto that network, right? You just never know. So, but a lot of people are lazy about it. So I feel like they should be listening here and definitely get out there in person. So you obviously believed in yourself to take this risk, right? So you bet on yourself, right? The odds were against you. There's a lot of law firms out there. So what was your key to success? How did you bet on yourself? Why did you take those risks, and how did you succeed?
Well, I think the key to success at the beginning was really just, yeah, like we first said, is just letting everybody know that you're open for business.
Right.
Then not being afraid to put yourself out there, because I think that holds people back a lot. Is
Mm,
they're not confident to put
confident.
themselves out there because they're like, well, if I let everybody know and I fail, everyone's gonna know that I failed,
Right.
right?
Right.
But I think if you just really go all in and say, well, you know what, if they know that I failed, they know, but at least I know that I gave it my all.
Right.
I let everybody know that I was open for business. I went on Facebook, I went on Instagram, I wrote the letters, I made the phone calls, and you just have to really commit to either failing or succeeding.
I always tell my friends who say, "Oh, I want to try this. I want to try." And I say, Master Yoda once said, "Do or do not. There is no try." Right. So you got to really do the work, right? You have to put that work in, and there's always going to be some sort of challenge that you're going to face that's going to make it hard to do the work and hard to get out there. What were some of the challenges you noticed that were able to help you break through from the couple $1,000s that you made to the thriving law firm? Like, what were the obstacles and challenges in the way of getting to that next level?
The biggest challenge was, I mean, the nature of our business is you get a case and then the case resolves 6 months to a year or even much later than that. So I think the big challenge was just keeping afloat for for the first year, making
Right.
sure that we can pay the rent, keep the lights on, have supplies. And I think a big key was just keeping your overhead low. If there was a win, just reinvesting that into the business. Don't buy anything for yourself. Don't just keep things really basic. And like, that means keep overhead low. Just, don't spend money where you don't need to spend it. Use all that money that you have, and put it into the business.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of startups fall into that trap. They get their round of funding, they get their $1 million in the bank, and they suddenly go get office space. They start hiring like crazy. They spend too much money on things they don't need, and then next thing you know, they run out of money. So you're saying do the opposite, which is, be scrappy, kind of put the money back into the business. Don't pay yourself this huge salary right off the bat. And that's good advice, right? And I've seen a lot of people fail because of running out of money. So you found your first clients, you grew your business, and you may or may not have made some mistakes along the way that I'd like for you to maybe tell us, like what you would avoid if you did this again in the future, or someone else is trying to do this in the future. What were maybe the key 1 or 2 mistakes that you said, I wish I can go back in time and tell myself, dude, don't do that?
I think the biggest mistake that I learned from in the beginning was being patient with clients. There were some clients that were really difficult. And yeah, I think I let my emotions get the best of me from time to time, and I would, talk more aggressively or just overly assertive with them. And just looking back, if I could go back in time and talk to that client again, I would just keep a cool head, not get upset no matter how unreasonable they were being,
Right.
and just stay calm, be nice to them. If they're asking for more than, if they're asking for me to reduce their fees because they believe that they should get more, then maybe just give in to that, and then things will be okay. Because I think, yeah, the client does come first. And if it's just a little bit more that they're asking for, it's okay. Things will work
So
out. Don't
so
get upset.
TLDR, be a little nicer, be a little more flexible, people.
Yeah.
Is really what it sounds like. And so, I mean, you had to build this business. So I'm assuming it's not just you anymore. Now you have other people working with you or for you. If that's the case, how did you put together that team, and how did you make that team succeed with you?
Yeah. So yeah, not just me anymore. There's 20 people here about,
Wow, it's a
my
lot.
wife included. My wife came on probably 3 or maybe 2 years into it, and she's
Nice.
been huge in developing the office. She's an attorney too. Where I lack, she makes up for.
So
So
she's the
it's a
boss.
good
It
partnership.
sounds like she's the boss, right?
Yeah. And yeah, I think it was challenging, especially at the beginning, hiring people. But what I've learned is that you really have to hire for culture. You can train the skills all day long, but what you can't train is attitude. So you want
Right.
to make sure that you have people that come in with a good attitude, and then you can train their skills after that.
You have an example of how that transpired for you? I like to tell people about this company culture thing a lot. So, do you have an example of like what you specifically did to make sure the culture was right?
Yeah, I mean every person that works here, I interview them myself, and I just make sure that I think that they'd be a good fit to the people that work here, that I would enjoy working with them. And no matter how good their resume is, if I think, you know what, I think I would bump heads with this person, maybe I don't hire them. I think that's really key, is just not
So
hiring
you're
people
basing
that
it
you
on
think, yeah, you would bump heads with or your staff would bump heads with.
are you basing it on like vibe, or are there green flags and red flags you look for? Like, because this is a hiring process situation here. This goes for any business.
I mean, one thing I think is really important is just hiring based off of work ethic. So I like to ask them, like, hey, well, what is your work ethic on a scale of 1 to 10? And if their answer isn't 9 or a 10, or they don't explain why it's not there, I'm not hiring them. That's
I mean,
the really
somebody could
important
just
two
say
right
they're a
answers
9 or 10,
for that.
but then they could be a 3. I mean, they could just say what they want, right?
Well, yeah, at least they say it. If they're saying, I don't know, my work ethic's poor, it's like, okay, well,
All right, all right. I mean,
yeah.
it sounds like it's kind of like you're looking for a specific kind of vibe from someone, like the kind of energy you get from them. Um, Also, when you're running this business, you're up to 20 people, you said, so it's a lot of people. How do you keep everybody motivated when things get tough? Because you mentioned there's like the long pipeline with the frustrating customers or clients, and then having to wait so long. Because I know these cases can go on sometimes for years. So how do you guys maintain like a positive mindset and stay motivated to keep going?
What's really important is just having systems and standards in place. So you have systems to make sure that everyone knows what their job is, what goals they need to reach, and how they get there. That
Okay.
keeps people positive versus, telling them, oh, you're doing it wrong. They have a place where they can go and say, okay, I know how to do things right. I think what really hurts morale is when you always have to say, oh, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. This is the way to do it. But when from the get-go, they know what they need to do, most of the time they do what they need to do.
That makes sense. I mean, a lot of people who start a business don't have processes in place, right? They don't have that structure. What do you recommend to make sure you're on top of that?
Yeah, this is huge. Having systems in place. So from the beginning, I wish I did this from the beginning.
Here we go. Another mistake
It's
made.
just anything that you do, you create a process for it. You create instructions on what you need to do, no matter how big or how small the
Yep.
task that you're doing. If you just create, a checklist or instructions on what needs to be done, it'll be huge in training others and just really creating expectations for people to reach.
Yeah, we do the same thing in my startups. It's whether tutorials, documents, videos, checklists, like you mentioned. It's really big. People need to really hear that because by doing that, you're doing less work for yourself in the future, right? You're just saying like,
Yes.
here, learn it, learn it. Stop asking me the same questions over and over again. So I totally agree with you. Now, let's say somebody, they've seen your success. You started out with a couple grand, one client, you're up to 20 employees. What advice do you have somebody who's just starting out today in a business and they have the same amount, a couple $1,000s, maybe one client? Like, what would you tell them? Here's what you need to do to succeed like I have.
My main advice is pretty basic, but there's always more ways to improve. Is really just two things. Number one, sacrifice, and number two, discipline. You really have to sacrifice what you want to do and just put all your time, energy, and effort into the business.
Man,
So a lot of things have to be pushed to the side. And then discipline on the other side is whether you want to do something or not, you have to do what you need to get done.
you're really striking a nerve with me because I wrote this blog post and did a whole monologue podcast episode about how running a startup or a business is sacrifice. And the main thing that I find your friends and your family just don't quite get is why that is. They don't quite understand why you can't go to that family get together, why you can't go out every single weekend with them to do things, and why on the weeknight you're on a call at 7 p.m. They just don't get the sacrifice. And you just brought that up. And it really, that means a lot because I think anybody listening to this or watching right now should pay attention to the fact that if you're going to run your own business, be prepared to sacrifice your life, essentially, right? So I totally get it. Now, let's say that somebody wants to potentially, do something in the legal industry, like because that's your expertise. We're talking about businesses here, but in your particular case, for the legal industry, what should somebody know before jumping into that industry to build something that's going to be successful in the future?
In the personal injury field, I mean, if you're in California or a big city, I mean, you see personal injury ads everywhere. You see billboards, you have television
Billboards,
commercials.
it's
Yeah,
nonstop.
it could be daunting. But what I think you should know and take comfort in is that if you're willing to put in the work, you can really outwork those firms and deliver better service than them and better results than them. I mean, even though they have a huge budget and people will call them, you can still build a reputation out of service and results that will really just break through, and you'll be able to get a good amount of clients from that.
Nice. I like that. And if somebody wants that good service and they want to talk to you and they want to hire you versus those big guns on the billboards, how do they get a hold of you and what will they get from your company?
So the website is lemgarcialaw.com. Our phone number 626-337-1111. You can even email me, lem@lemgarcialaw.com. And what separates us is just really our service, number one. Like you can call us and you can reach the person whose name is on the company. Like you'll be able to talk to me if you want to.
or
Other
your or
firms,
your
I
or
don't
your
think you
wife,
can
right?
call the partner and you can ask from them. They will maybe the person answering will say, never even met that person.
Right.
So
That makes a lot of sense.
there's
It's a lot of call
accessibility.
centers. Yeah.
What's that?
It's a lot of call centers out there.
Yeah, call centers, or even if they're not at the call, maybe even the office. Like they don't even go in the office. They're not a
Yeah.
present.
I like that. So guys,
and then
talk to Lem directly, guys. Go to lemgarcialaw.com and check it out if you need some help with your personal injury case. Appreciate it, Lem. Hope you guys learned something, and we will see you guys in the next episode.